Wow, thank you very much, Claudia. That was a neat little tour of my work. Some of the lines I'd forgotten I'd written. And I'd like to thank Rod and Tree and everybody for having me. And it's great to be reading with the open micers, which was, as Jeff mentioned, was a very good one. And of course Jeff, who I haven't read with before. So yeah, the book just came out, my new book came out a week ago, so I'm still a little bit gun shy with it. So I'm going to start with some poems from Hayflick Limit. Claudia's right, there's a sequence of poems in here about strange phobias, and they're all true. I looked them up, except for this one, which I made up, just because. And it's called Paralisophobia. It means fear of parades. As if real life weren't Byzantine enough, under a xenon-charged sky, float by. A high school band sweats out Sergeant Pepper epaulets and worsted slacks, bleeding a half-tempo when the Saints go marching in, while the majorettes in red spangled spandex pause in formation, puffy arms poised for batons to fall like day stars, sons of morning. A go-kart zips past, Methuselah in a fez, shepherding fellow Lions Club members in their tramp to the end. A peril of fools. Nonsense is Munchkin land. Only the unfocused peripheral eye catches the curls of green smoke, the long road lined with scarecrows. The Hayflick limit. What is the Hayflick limit? It is it's named after Leonard Hayflick, who's a scientist in the early 60s, who discovered that each species has a finite number of times that their cells can multiply. It's different for each species, and humans it's 52. And the upshot being that after 52, or there's some debate, but around there, that's it. We can't age forever. We sort of have a capped lifespan of about 120 years. So a lot of the poems in the Hayflick limit deal with sort of ultimate limits, and I thought that was the biggest one of all, so it became the title. And I'm going to read the title poem in a way. It's not actually the title of the poem, but it makes its way into the body of it. It's set in a hospital, and it's called Admittance. Slipped into with a breaststroke, twill tape tied at the nape, if nimble enough around your waist. The rear gap a fig leaf lets in an emollient breeze. Hospital gowns, the color of semi-private, of night seams. Hours wound like copper between rounds, Tylenol 3s, Gravol to keep it down. One bed over, the fellow is always young, in the scheme of things a pipsqueak, certain of discharge. Him also, ministered to by the able-bodied, unimpressed until the end, he'll crawl into it. Everywhere that sea serpent green, thread counts wearing thin, so many washings in bleach. This won't be the gown I expire in, a few cycles still, release and admittance, release, admittance. The ability to adapt, unremitting, given knowledge of the limit, 52 cell renewals, no more, probably less. Cursed, blessed, or hung up in between. As an either or, better than nothing, I guess. Each next contains the last, like my new bunkmate. He snores, in the wake his encased femur knitting. Tomorrow, I'm for home. Civilian clothes, cotton and synthetics blended to hold shape. Thermal underwear, wool sweater, heating layers within. Nuclei making a go of it, ghosting another version I labor to flourish and forget. I'll read one more from Hayflick. My wife and I are in the process of adopting a child. It's a sort of a long process, and we've been doing this for a number of years, but of course we had years of fertility treatments, and it kind of messes with you a little bit, that side of it. And at the same time I was reading a lot about Darwin, and just how evolution happens, all the arguments for it, which I'm totally on side with, by the way. And so this had these things kind of swirling around my head one day, and it sort of came out as a poem. There's one thing you need to know about this poem, or you don't need to, but it helps. The Archaeopteryx is considered to be the first creature to fly. And it's very strange because flight is always, they always thought of it as an all or nothing thing. You don't really half fly, you can either do it or you can't. So it's always been a bit of a puzzle how flight evolved. It's called XX. Dog day cicadas up the drama, drumming abdomen amphitheaters. Squirrels chase their ideals while a monarch knits pearls, remembers a mountain fir in Mexico. This could be any time. Children amok in the grass, lollipop smear over lip smacks, collar jingle of the yellow lab punch drunk from its olfactories. Each blade a finger pushed from below, my own prints pushed back into earth. It was dusk, 1979, when I first kissed a girl named No. Is that really you beside me? We watch top-heavy offspring, years away from independence, clumsy as primal wishbone, downstroke, flight of the Archaeopteryx, niche fillers. How many of our many words come close to this willow's photosymphonic swell towards sun? A blissful tot runs from her parents, 2 X chromosomes, 2 legs, the legs of the letter X, that could be you, my love, if the years were reversed or reversed. If history had no means to keep us in place, in parallel, bound by this green space, 2 adults, shelled. A honeybee backtracks stigma to stigma, sterile, able through sister genes to exist as though queen. The mind-struck hive, and I hear in the fade of sustained chord the tender you we have tried and failed. It's stunning anything's alive. So, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, and I really mean that, because these new poems, it's funny, when you're writing poems you have a voice in your head, and the voice is a little bit different from Hayflick. Well, the only way I can describe it, you've all seen Spinal Tap, of course, is when he talks about turning the volume up to 11, you know, I sort of heard that voice in my head. So I'm going to read that way, and hopefully, and again, forgive me if I blow out the speakers or something. So when people talk about poems, or people who don't write poetry or read it, they often talk about, oh, it still has cultural currency because, you know, at those occasions that we all go to, people want to hear poems read, those momentous occasions like weddings and funerals and births and that sort of thing. And I did write a poem for my brother at his wedding. He asked me to. I don't know how often he's read my work, but he sort of felt it was important to do that. And of course, when they're talking about those poems, they're not talking about this poem, which is about a wedding as well. It's called Carbon Monoxide, Alka-Seltzer, and the Slow Pitch of Acceptance. I know you're now, husband, like I know Altoids unholy smolder on my tongue. In Black Tails, he turns out tall, a square shooter, gut proud, premature baldness compensated for by guffaws plus goatee. His 1-2 punch of girth and mirth makes him a prized specimen of sexual dimorphism, a fearsome receiving line end. Your suffix for Saturdays to come, able, as in hug and amen, ply and stuff. Marriage-worthy, my wife whispered to hush me mid-ceremony. I hadn't spoken. On her canopy fringe and I uncharged down cumulus hills, roughened by gusts off the 18th green. A thought bubble, soft-boiled, the words fair and way is all. How germane to the exchange of vows cueing your act two, the unheralded high-voltage zig in upper spheres, the mean free path of the career-wise 30-something. Inside the hall, your whitened smile is eclipsed by the tapered occiput of the guy weight-shifting in front of me. a raw bone stiff out of keeping with the revelry, especially with buffet lids tilted on the side wall like hubcaps on display. The man's dark gray tip-top fabric, dandruff erecting a megalith along his collarbone as air kiss after kiss soar like helicopters over your cheeks. Welcomes, congrats, oh happy days. We come to worship a fixed earth and league with sailors at sea, Spanish caravels billowing towards a horizon of finite regress, which at least licenses the belief we're making progress towards that first twist-off at the open bar. Without time's invisible framework, I'd never pool tomorrow in my hotel bed like heavy water, phased by another night squandered after a charming number of imports, domestic premiums, then sad Coors Lights. And you'd never fork a hubby more deli-style dill than bread and butter if you didn't believe you could change him, if you didn't feel change in yourself. Unchecked mitosis can't be your only excuse for a move like this, a lonely testament to so much pressed linen. Don't get me wrong, cuz when you unwrap the CO detector, I wish you nothing but good news, monthly readouts and parts per million well within acceptable range. My gift detects cause for regret. It's not the ceiling that spins, it's your head. It's a little bit too loud. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I need to get my guitar out. I'll try and stand back for the next one. Okay, where am I going to go here? Okay, so that was the wedding, and now I'm going to do the funeral. It's sort of a lot of these. I like to think of some of these poems, or there's about 2 dozen of them, and I had simple constraints where I wanted to put people in these situations where their body is sort of doing nothing. I mean, it happens so often in modern life where we're lining up, we're commuting, we're in the dentist chair, we're in a jacuzzi just sitting there. I mean, there's so many moments of stasis in our lives, and I wanted to sort of play with what goes on in a person's head. So a lot of these poems sort of, they're a page and a half, they're almost exactly the same length, and they're trying to get that cross-section of thought that happens in these moments. So that obviously, the first one we use in the receiving line, just waiting to shake hands. And this one is just at a funeral. And it's textured a little bit differently, this one. Is this really annoying? No, it's okay, because I'm hearing the feedback. Okay. It's called From the Outside In. Yeah, From the Outside In. Underdone funeral parlor, floral papered walls and colors clinically proven to soothe. I move to watch my second-hand sack hop ahead. Galileo lit on the pendulum clock in an oak-backed pew. A blessed Renaissance breeze swung at the cathedral chandelier in periods counted out with his pulse. 1 censor, 2 censor. Our dead friend didn't specialize, loved music. From overhead speakers, November rain dust 8x10s framed for the lobby's pledged surfaces. Kleenex, his weapon of choice for the meek, the earth 4 billion years young, home to the deceased for 42 of them. Questions like FedEx packages no one's willing to sign for. It goes without saying chronometers have skewed a reckoning of a good life. Panels and panels of Charlie Brown consumed by good grief. A Planck time interval is so vapor thin, there's no before or after, no report to follow the starter's pistol, no revenge to bury Macbeth, no sketch artists. The finer we measure the present, the wilder our stab at the future. Plans are thus afoot to lower into the paunch of a desert mountain a 60-foot clock some optimists have designed to last 10,000 years. You couldn't engineer a denouement sweeter than this peach punch or the munchkin under the table in Sunday best munching on a gherkin. Kids are always proud of their age. This one's about 4 revolutions around a sun and a solar system stubbornly self-centered. Galileo died under house arrest, refusing to endorse notions that the universe means us. 10 millennia hence, Whatever creatures scamper on prehensiles down eroded inclines in the geopolitical state once called Nevada will witness our final sputter like the raspberry from a New Year's noisemaker. I overhear a truism shared by the 4-year-old's mother, her quavering voice the hinge on the afternoon, a jewelry box lined with black velvet. The breath between feeling and knowing, like Chestnut and Cohen, are going, going, and gone. How normal he was, good heart, but bad ticker. A lesson to think on later when resuming my daily chores, shedding man-ray tears, mowing tighter and tighter rectangles towards the middle of Kentucky blue. So I'm going to read some shorter ones from the book. Yeah, I'll read a couple more. And this one is called Trust Fund. And no animals were harmed in the making of this poem. Trust Fund. Brother and sister watched the estate lawyer take a cork-backed ruler to the ground plan. 2 wings behind a cast-iron gate, a barn raised for the Shetlands. Into the picture flock grouse, the furious V's breed W's, while on the French curved cobbled path a litter of kittens cascades in a burlap sack. Brother and sister, like stowaways, clasp hands as the horizon lifts and blackens the moor. Mother, in whalebone from her boudoir, warned she'd return every 17 years with the locusts. Since they first sat down, the antique globe on the lawyer's desk has not stopped spinning. Pacific, Pacific. I'm sorry, I didn't see what time I started. Okay, I'll do 2 more short ones. This one is called Inflatable Moat. Thank you for laughing. I like the title came first. Sometimes the titles come first when you're writing poems, and I had this title just hanging on I put on my little note on my MacBook, you know, those little sticky things. It's just hanging there for I don't know how long, and I've been attempting to write poems for it, and so hopefully the poem lives up to the title. Inflatable Moat. Picture a bundt cake with center hole shiny enough to suggest crown. I won't be tempted. I'm an honest assembler with responsibilities of good standing in my domain. Just last month I foiled another attempt on the sovereign's life with a turkey baster and some Munster. Details are classified, but keep in mind I'm handy in the scullery. Food taster's stressful work. I had early in my career a public falling out with a court jester. Stabbed him with a meat thermometer. That was my first promotion, sous chef. An onion peeled for every thumped rat, their eyes dim with the future to be had. Is that me, swaddled in a grand carriage between county estates, king of my own catering company? Indeed, the envoy gallops over the rise, tables set, and I've a fancy new hat. Ready the drawbridge. I've seen Elvis Costello in concert a number of times, and he's got a poem. He's got a song called I think it's called "Accidents Will Happen," and it begins. Well, I just don't know where to begin, you know, and it's such a, I can't sing it, but that line, I just don't know where to begin, is such a tempting line to open a concert with. And I've seen him open it in the dark, where the stage is completely dark, and you just hear that first chord, and he says that line, and it's just sort of like a perfect opening. So I'm gonna do that for the ending. And I don't know, we'll see. This poem is called V is for Vacuum. On the flip side, he's in sweatpants moving house, groping for a contact lens in the carpet. There's a view of nuclear stacks from when he memorized the alphabet front to back. He's not doing so well. He's doing just fine, thanks. He's stuck between U and W, and the cheerleaders refuse to spell out his name. The lake's sun sets like a victory parade float. He's always thought so. Not everything will change tomorrow. Cheerleaders practice inverted V's on the painted grass, so he imagines on hands and knees, combing his fingers through cerulean shag. Hear that? That's a fleet of beetles and bottle caps striking out for Kincardine. The current does its thing, and when he leaves, he'll leave to a hero's welcome.